You are listening to Fika with Vicky on United Public Radio, 107.7 and 105.3 from New Orleans.
Fika. Visiting Fika today is returning guest, author, witch, teacher, and more, Irisanya Moon. We're going to be talking about her freshest release, The Norns, Weavers of Fate and Magik. And I say freshest because to me, putting a new book into the world is like pulling a tray of cinnamon buns out of the oven. You can sense the sweetness of new ideas, and you can't wait to sit down at a table and consume them. But sometimes it's best to wait until they cool. And the best way for me to explain that is my review of The Norns. So here it is. The Norns was not meant to be read alone. It was meant to be lived, explored, and contemplated. Irisanya Moon shares her experiences, way, and research, opening a doorway for us to enter this world of wisdom. And if you felt the tug, like I did, you're sure to return to this reference often. Thanks for opening that door, Irisanya. And welcome back to Fika.
Thanks for having me back. So much has happened. So.
Yes, and it has only been a short while. You're difficult to keep up with.
That's true. I meant the world too, not just me.
Yes. Well, we're just going to ignore the world for a
absolutely
bit.
Great. Let's do that.
Enjoy ourselves. So before we get into you, I know it's all about you, but before I guess this is sort of about you too. But before we get into the book itself, I want to talk a bit about Pagan Portal, the lines. Now, portal is a gateway into something. It is an opening into something bigger. And that's why I like that line, because it allows me to get a glimpse of something and then go for it. But as an author, what is it that makes you, because you have four, working on 5.
Yes, working on 5. It keeps moving. It's fine.
In that line out there.
So one of the things I love about the Pagan Portals series, and because I think there's 80 of them at this point, is that it gets to be this introduction to things. It gets to be, here are the basics. And for me, it feels like a really nice, here's some things, maybe you want to explore more. And depending on the book, it might go into a little bit more exploration. Sometimes they just sort of stick with the real basics. But I think it's just such a great way to not have to do a ton of research to find out about something. And it's just more accessible, I think, to have this, 100-page book that is something you can read really quickly and go, do I want to date this deity or not? And make a decision from there. Hopefully, I like to hope that I'm inspiring people to find out more. So
well, I would say you are. I can't speak for everyone, but in my case, I find them very inspirational. And also, always with your books, most of the ones that I have read, I haven't read all 80, but they have a list of references in the back of them, so you can go further. And you always give credit to where an idea comes from.
I try.
Yes. You are very careful about a lot of things. It's like, okay, people, this is what I'm doing. You don't have to do this. Please think and go ahead and find your own way of doing this. You have developed so many different ways of expressing that in writing, and so careful not to, say the wrong thing or whatever.
Well, and it's more, I think, to just be invitational about it, because I think it's so easy in a lot of witchcraft books or books about anything for someone to read it and think that's the answer. And I don't want anybody to be scared away by the fact that I do it a certain way. No, this might be a great starting point, but please go on and do your own thing. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to encourage you to do something.
And if someone came up to you and said, "Oh, this is what I got from your book, and this is what you did, you would be excited. It's not about
Love
being right. It's about the inspiring and the information going out there.
Absolutely.
And aside from that, I also I always say to writers, and if you want some research material to get you started on a character or whatever it is that you're writing about, this is the place to go, because it's it's the best way to go. So you like to write them because it allows you to be.
Yeah, I like to. So my publisher at one point the other day was asking me about a future project and said, I don't know if you're going to be interested in it because your writing style is more invitational than informational. And which, okay, you're right. But these books are more informational. Like there is invitation in it too, but I like that it is just a nice base of information. And there's so many different voices too in the Pagan Portals line, like Rachel Patterson and Morgan Daimler and everybody. It's not, I haven't written 80. Between all of us, we have. And so, yeah, I just think, I don't know, like who doesn't, like, you pick up some books and they're huge. That depresses me when I see a book that's really big and I want to give up immediately. So you are about 100 pages. Great. Totally can be able to, I can commit to that. So
take that book and make it a smaller series thing, and I will, but it is a lot to consider when you're considering. And now they put at the, if you get an ebook, they put at the beginning, this book takes so many hours to read, right? Which it depends on your reading thing.
Right.
But, I'm almost saying, don't do that anymore. I'm almost clicking that button to make that go away, because if I'm looking at 10 hours,
don't tell me that. Don't tell me it.
Yeah.
I just want to be in the experience. We do not need to quantify and capitalize, capitalism, everything. Like we don't have to be productive all the time.
Exactly. I just want to know this. This is what I want to know. And then, like I said, there are the references so that you can go find those books. Absolutely. If you want to take it further.
Absolutely.
So
yes.
So yes. Yeah. I thought you were informational. I
think, I think that I tend to lean in invitational, because I think it goes back to what I said. I don't want to tell you what to do. I want to invite you into finding out what's right for you. And here's some things.
And I think that in this world, that can still be very confusing for people.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I've read some reviews or something somewhere. It wasn't about you. It was another like of this type of book. And it was like, well, they don't even know who they are. And I'm like, they know who they are. They're just saying you can be who you want to be. Like there's such that confusion if you don't say I'm right and do this.
I think that it is the deeply ingrained Christian approach that here is the right answer. And if you do the right thing, this will happen. Right. And so when you make it a little bit more nebulous, it gets a little scary and you don't know what to do. Well, am I in charge? It's up to me. Oh no. And I get that. That makes sense. And you can also trust yourself, and probably not going to make a mistake in a relationship with a deity that's going to cause harm. Probably not.
No, I don't think so. They've been around for centuries. They've seen people for a long time. What haven't they seen? Like what?
Right. Have you seen the Greeks? Come on.
I was going to say they have nothing to talk about, really.
Right.
Which makes them perfect examples. Oh no, we're not going down that road. Look what Herod did.
We could do a whole thing on that. So I mostly write about the Greeks. So yes.
So when I say you share your experiences, and you do, because you said the best way for you to learn is through other people's experiences. And I agree. Like, tell me what you did and how it worked. Okay. Because, it's a very pragmatic to go. Just because it's in a book doesn't mean it's going to work.
No.
But there's a very fine line between sharing your experiences and going too far and taking the reader away from the actual topic into your life and experiences. And also there's boundaries for yourself. And there's just, I know that you do a lot of workshops in that. where you get a lot of personal one-on-one experience with this.
Yeah.
But does that take a lot of rewriting, thinking? Does it come naturally to you? How do you, guard your writing?
How do I do this?
Yes.
Yeah. How do I share personal stuff? First of all, I think that it's important for me to include it in books because it helps me get into the energetics of it. Because more often than not, all of the books that I have written up to this point have been with deities that I've worked with for a while. And so it is important for me to bring that into the book.
It's part
important.
of you.
It's important for me to bring the stories of how we met. I think that that's important because I think it just, for me, it sets the tone for the rest of it, that this is not just, I'm talking about someone outside. I'm talking about someone who is like here for me. In terms of sharing my personal things, I actually think it's I have no troubles sharing my personal stuff in books, whatever. Because there's actually something that's a little less vulnerable about that. Like I'm sharing something with an audience that can't actually react to me in real time and that actually I'm not going to see on a daily basis. Sharing things with people that I am going to see, that actually feels a little bit more vulnerable. I think I balance it in books best when I think about, is this something that could evoke an emotion or an experience in a reader? That's where I sort of draw the line. If it was only emotional and evocative for me, I will probably not include it. But if I feel like it's something that might be inspirational, I will include it. I will not say everything, but I will say a lot of it. Because I think it's important. I got feedback really early on in my teaching career that I was too sort of perfect and sort of, really wanted to be reserved and perfect in what I was saying. And I wasn't being vulnerable. So it wasn't inviting vulnerability in other folks. And I was like, oh, and so I think of that too. Like I want to invite the fact that I'm a human into this conversation and you are too.
Well, people don't feel that you get it otherwise, right? Like who is nobody knows you and they don't know what your experience have been and what you go through, and they just see they see this perfect person there. So it is important, but like you said, your line is where it's going to cause emotional response in someone else, and you don't want to take them down that road. So
I want to do that for folks up to a point. I don't want to I just want to give them an opportunity to feel into my experience, but I won't go beyond what is not, it's really more about me than it is about them or about the deity for that matter.
So beyond the togetherness. If it's not about the togetherness of you and the deity and relating that experience to them, it's edited out.
Yeah.
Regardless of how close it is to you.
I think that's fair. I think that's usually the case. And sometimes I just say everything because I think it's, I don't really write these books alone, I think. And so sometimes it really feels like I guess we're saying that. We're going to say that today.
This is why I asked the question, because reading them, I feel like you find the perfect point to stop. I have enough. I mean, not that I would complain anyway, because I want to know all about you.
Oh, gosh,
but that's why we're here today. But,
nosy as heck, yes.
But you bring it right to. I don't lose track of that. It's about the deity and how to build a relationship to them, and that is an example of that, and not continuing it from there. I just think. I mean, this is why I asked, because other people need to know how to do this because you do it well.
Thank you. I try. I mean, I remember because I read the opening section in a couple of book launches lately. There is a line in the very first section. I think it's like the introduction that I say, "This is." I don't tell you all this to indulge my nostalgia. And then I go into, here's why I'm actually bringing this up right now. So, because I do recognize there's a balance there. I mean, if I'm going to write a book about me, write a book about me, but this is actually about the gods.
It's not a memoir. It's a portal.
Yes, exactly. It's a portal into an experience. Here's how I got there. You can go too.
you can just follow this way. Okay, so before we go on and on and on, what are you doing?
Portals are huge. Yes.
Do you want to explain for the listeners, viewers, who the Norns are, if they may not know?
So the Norns are pretty, I think, central, large figures in Norse mythology. They are often depicted as these women sitting at the base of the world tree, and they are spinning the threads that weave us all together. So, however, there's more to it than that. But if we're talking about the Norns and what the title is, I'm referring to Erd, Verdandi, and Skuld. And they are, the very basic way to say this is past, present, and future. But it's not that. It's way more nuanced than that. But our brains can handle that. So they sit at the base of the world tree. One of them weaves the threads of life and time. One of them measures out the span of a life. And the other one cuts, death. They also sit at the base of the world tree by the well of Erd, which is the well of fate. And they can take water from that to nourish the roots of the world tree. In Norse mythology, it's the thing that holds all the worlds together. Pretty important to keep those roots going. And so that's also part of their job. But basically they, when someone is born, you are woven into this big web of time and weird, W-Y-R-D. And they're the ones that keep that going. And there's a lot of, to be continued, because there's a lot that they do and there's a lot that they could do.
Yeah, but
I would also say that people could say that they're deities. They're not really named that in Norse mythology. They're giantesses. They're sort of beings. And hilariously enough, for beings that weave time and how we're all put together, there's not a lot said about them in source texts. So it's something I like to put out there as something intriguing.
And gives us a chance to look at them simply because we always hear about the fates in other mythologies. So it's interesting to hear about this particular one. Now, in even shorter form, because this is such a huge topic.
It really is. I know. How I got that into a book, no idea.
Well, okay, because people are going to say, well, fate and destiny, what about free will? And then we don't have a weekend or a week. So people just discuss that amongst yourselves later on if you like. But Irisanya is just going to give us
a lot to it.
A short answer for today.
Yes. So that's the biggest thing that comes up with the Norns. If they're weaving all of us together, does that mean that we are fated to live a certain life? Does that mean that we don't have free will? Does that mean that none of what I do matters? And that makes sense. Absolutely. One of the things to remember is that in any working with deities or gods or anything like that, that there is a context in which this all started. So the context that we're in right now, doesn't always line up and can make things confusing. So we think, oh my gosh, rugged individualism and do all of our things. When we weren't in this society and moving further back, folks had to rely on each other. They couldn't be rugged individuals. They had to be with each other. So the idea that what I do impacts you makes sense. Here, we tend to be more disconnected, and we can sometimes say well, what I do doesn't matter because there's so many other people and I don't see them. In these societies, everyone was in groups and communities, and it did matter. One of the things that I have heard, different practitioners think differently about this too. So I'm going to give a caveat here. But what I think to be true is that I believe that there is some sort of fate or destiny that we are guided by. Now, how you meet that is different. How you approach that, the choices that you make are within your being to make those choices. How I approach my life, how I fight against what my talents are or I don't. Those are all free will still. Just because you're maybe heading somewhere doesn't necessarily mean that you can't make any U-turns or side cuts along the way. So that's the shortest answer. There are, in the book, I talk about different layers of this because there are different layers. There's not just fate and destiny. There's also weird, which is all of the time that we're all wrapped into. The Norns are also often called the weird sisters. And just because I have to say this, because I realize I haven't said this yet, I don't think that gods and deities have gender, but they're often represented as women. So that's why I call them that. Backing up.
No.
I don't, but also I think because they weave, I think it's really easy to be like, oh, women. And so anyways, a whole thing on that in there too. But so then there's weird that we all get woven into, but there's also, what have I been born into? What are things that are inherently me that other people just don't have? That does impact how my life goes. The fact that I am able-bodied impacts the way my life goes. The fact that I'm born into a certain family or a certain city impacts the way that my life goes, impacts my fate, impacts my destiny. So I try to break that all down so that folks can at least have a conversation about what that might look like for them.
So what I get, or how I've seen it, is that fate is the things that are given to us or people do around us that we have no control over. And then our free will is how we deal with that, and that creates our destiny.
Yep.
So that would be the, and that's another thing in your book. There's many things in her book, people, but if you go off, another reason to follow mythology and to pick up these books and learn a little bit is because you might be watching a show someday like the Vikings, and something happens and you're like, I can't believe they're dealing with it like this. I don't care. Like, but also when you think about the timeline and their philosophy, you don't have time to stop and get emotional in those things. You don't have time to contemplate what could have been. You're just like, no, we have to keep sailing. There are places to pillage. Move on.
Yeah. Survival conquers all, right? I mean, survival is the thing that you think of. And also, you can't do all this stuff alone. You have to rely on the folks that are around you, whether you like them or not. And you need to, you also need to deal with the circumstances of weather and crops. You have to deal with all that. And so coming from this modern perspective, it can be really hard to, why doesn't make sense? Well, of course it doesn't make sense. I can go out to the store right now and get some cereal, right? Like I don't have to, worry about that. I can have it delivered to my house.
It doesn't matter if the weather destroyed the grain and, no one ground the wheat. It just is there. And so we have time to think about other things.
Exactly.
Like our individuality.
So it's not all about where we're at now. Like thinking about those multiple perspectives.
You take in the time of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, the time of the story is important. And speaking of that and holding on to this, so we talk about fate, things that you've been given, and you have to work it around. There is, as you go on with the book, there are activities and things to do that allow you to work with some of these ideas and to work with these weavers.
Yes.
And so while you're doing that, you're looking back over time. You have to. It's a lifetime and seeing how it's all interwoven, right? As in everything is connected. And while you're doing that, you might say, oh my gosh, I remember when I'm not going to even say a name because I don't want to be like Romper Room and somebody's name got said and they think of it the other way. So you think, oh, that person did this. And because they did this, this is how I feel now. And so they need to apologize to me. I need to go back and bring this up again. I have to. And no, that's not what you're saying, right? You're saying
there's another way.
Yeah. And blame.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing. I think feelings are valid, right? Your feelings are always valid. How you act on those, not so much. But if you have feelings, great, sit with those, be with those, but work on those with yourself. I think I always like, how can I work with this? How can I, one of the things with the Norns that I think is important in this particular time is to recognize that while I talk about past, present, future, time is everywhere. Time is timey-wimey, right? And time is going on all the time. Past is being created in every moment. Future is being created in every moment. So if you think of it like that, you can also heal backwards in time. You don't have to actually go to the past. You could also heal backwards and work on things in that manner. Though I talk a lot about that in the book, because while I can't undo the things of my past, there are ways to work with it in this moment. But it's also healing in the past, but also healing towards the future. How can I also spread that out to whoever is coming? And I think the Norns just offer that as a possibility. And to me, that is incredibly hopeful. And it also empowers me to do something and to navigate difficult things with maybe a little bit of grace.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what the book does say.
Yeah.
She's that's what you're
Mhm.
getting. Exactly what Irisanya is saying.
Mhm.
So it gives us, it empowers us
Mhm.
to deal with the things that have happened,
Mhm.
because we only have one life. And
Mhm.
we don't want to waste it getting mad at that person in second grade. That
Right. And also, it's not, and I want to be clear in case this feels like a thing. It's not, everything is great, everything needs to be good, everything. There's no, I'm sorry if people like this phrase, there's not this love and light attitude here, but it's more about that, I can meet things and heal things or reconcile them. Maybe that's a better word. I can weave them into my strand of weird in a way that's helpful in somebody else's. Because if it's a web, we're all connected. And so if I can weave something in, that means it's going to go down the line, or it's going to go across, or wherever it's going to go.
So we're neither innocent nor guilty for a lifetime.
No.
There's things that happen that we don't even. It's an important way to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, we're all villains and we're all heroes in somebody's story.
Exactly. We're all the characters. So
Absolutely.
how we see ourselves. So it is a very pragmatic, I would say, way of looking at things and getting, which doesn't mean that, yes, you said people's feelings are valid, but so is the fact you only have one life. And
Yes. Well, and that's also the idea. One of my things is that, in Reclaiming, we talk about this, like, yes, your experience is valid, but it can also impact others people's experiences. So you need to think about that. It's the whole thing of, you're not the only person in the room. You're not the rugged individual, as much as you might think you are. We are all impacting each other all the time.
so if you have a bad day, just smile at that person. It doesn't mean that you're not validating your own feelings or that you're being a fake. It just means you're thinking, I don't have to mess with their life over it, right?
No, maybe there's something for me to learn in this moment. Fantastic. I think one of the biggest lessons I'm getting as I'm having more and more life is this idea of, like, how can I meet people where they're at right now? Not where I want them to be and not where they've been. Who are you right now? And does that work for me? And if it doesn't, okay, well then something might need to happen. And if I can meet you there, though, let's just see what happens, and let's just be in this moment.
Well, that I think is part of allowing everyone their own path. Because who's to say that you are further ahead or behind someone else? You don't know yet. They may be advanced, but you haven't got there yet. So we tend to think, yeah, we're right, and this is our moment, and we've grown to this point. But no, it is good to speak to people at where they are.
I feel like the phrase "mind your weird" is going to be one that I'm going to use. Mind your weird, like, mind your part of this, and also know that it's impacting others, but mind yours.
Right. Okay. So, we philosophizized on that, I think, enough. Did you get that, people? If you don't, we can go on.
We could keep
sure.
going. We definitely could. That is.
We could take a weekend on this. So, building on that. Okay, so what I got out of reading this book is that working with the Norns can be a hugely emotional experience, because it is the work of a lifetime. You are looking at your whole life, past, future, whatever. It's all out there.
Yep.
So do you suggest that people maybe read a little bit, try a little bit, like don't rush yourself on this one? Like I said, let it cool a bit.
Yeah, I say that with everything. Don't rush. Like it's it is a lot of work to do it all at the same time. Doesn't feel like that would be helpful, and it would probably just be a real surface level, which is fine if that's what you want to do too. Just to be clear, that's cool.
Yeah, you're just going for the info instead of
I often say you don't have to do your hardest work all the time, and so you don't. But I think with these folks that what I would recommend people do is to look at what each of the Norns has to offer, and then sort of go, is that a place that I might want to dive into, and maybe work with one at a time. Because I think that that will be a little bit more approachable and a little bit more accessible. And then you can sort of go, okay, well, I'll move on to the other ones. Or maybe you won't. Maybe there's one that's just, okay, that's my lesson. That is where I'm at right now.
And maybe 2 years from now, you pull the book out again and say, oh, now I'm ready to work with this one.
Exactly. And you don't have to work on them in order. First of all, they're always going on all the time, too. For one.
Because I'll let you know, I defied things. I mean, it says to do the activities as we go along.
I have a favorite Norn, so
I have to know what. Oh, how dare you! I have to know.
It's in the book.
What is happening ahead of time, right? So I can rearrange and get the coffee ready and get enough sleep or whatever. So I'm the kind of person that reads the whole book and then goes back and does the activities as they come to be, or I want to do them. Now, how important, I think that doing these things are an important way. Okay, I'm going to put this out in a different scope. So you're a writer.
Yes.
And you sit down under the world tree to meet whoever is to come to you. Now, you may be writing a book about the ancient Vikings and their belief, a fictional book. And in doing that, you're allowing your imagination to go, and you might come up with an entire chapter, people. Like, this stuff works this way. Letting your mind go to possibilities always works that way. So that's another good reason for having this book.
Yes.
But we talk about journaling, and once again, sharing, and then we bring in the conversation we had before about sharing who you are. Do you think that journaling is important aside from talking to others? Do you think there are times for both of them? What's your take on it?
Yes. So I think both. I think that journaling is a really great practice of having more self-awareness. I think it's a good tool for that because you're not sharing it with other folks. You often, I'm not going to say always, because I know sometimes my journals aren't complete, but you're often really saying everything. And I think that that is such a great tool, and it's such a great way to witness yourself. That said, I think that being with other folks and having things witnessed by other folks is actually really healing, and is probably, I don't want to say more healing, but it is definitely a part of healing. I don't think you can skip that part. I think you do have to interact. Like, we heal in relationship, and relationship with self too, but also we heal in relationship with people who have real reactions and real personalities and real impact on what we've done. And I think that the only other thing I would say about all of this too is that I really love journaling. I don't always do it, but
do we always do anything?
Thank goodness no. But what I will say is that journaling isn't always accessible to folks. So I've always tried to think of like other things that folks can do. Like, I encourage folks to do art pieces, doodle, record something into your phone, sing, dance. Those are all perfectly reasonable replacements for journaling. It is more about getting in touch of what you think and what you think now and what you think now and what you thought of this. And so that's the more important part. And
that's an important point. Thanks for bringing that up, because people all have their gifts and their talents and things they want to do. And so it's the best way you express yourself. If it's building a sculpture, if it's, you're doing something mechanical and fixing something while you truly think. Lego can be meditation. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, because you sit there and you're building So, yes, thank you for bringing that up. I overlooked that in my talking.
I mean, to be fair, I don't know if I said it in the book, so we're getting it out here now. So I do that a lot when I'm teaching. I always give people different access points because I don't know where people are at, and I don't want to tell them this is the only way in, and then it's really hard and horrible, and they never do it again. I don't want that.
Right. No, I told you she's very caring. It comes out in the writing.
I try.
It comes. It comes. I'm like, how many ways can you explain that in a nice manner? I was Sonia, but it's very endearing. Okay, so we need more of that. So doing the individual practices, that one-on-one with the deities is important. If you want to use that aspect of the book. If you just want the information, then read away. But if you want to get some healing benefits of it or whatever, the activities are important.
Yeah. Well, I think that it is, like I said, healing, I think, happens in relationship. So relationship with deities, relationship to a tree, relationship to the ocean, whatever. But building relationships, I think, is where you get the most interaction and the most reflection and a lot of, hopefully, some insights into whatever you're worried about or whatever comes up for you.
So, and this applies to, this is the wonderful thing about mythology. As I've said before, one person's folklore is another person's spirituality. And we can all get a lot out of it, for those reasons. The truth is actually simpler than we give credit. It doesn't need all those details. A good story will often give us the truth. Now, considering that, there are many, I was reminded when you spoke of a relationship with deity, because you're the Aphrodite girl. And I think of her as the Aphrodite girl. And you've worked with Iris, and there are more coming up on the Pagan Portals, and you have the Norns. So what I want to know, not that I'm looking for scandal, what I want to know is, how does it work with all of these deities and their different philosophies? And as I mentioned earlier, I picture like Iris on one shoulder and Aphrodite on the other shoulder. They're both speaking through ears. So
yeah. How does that all work? Polytheism 101. I wrote an article about this eons ago. It was either in Witches and Pagans or Sage Women. I can't remember which. So here's the thing. I think that this is one of my big sort of belief systems anyways, is that building relationships with gods, deities, whatever you want to call them, is just like human relationships. So I imagine a lot of people have more than one friend. How do you do that? You try to figure out what's important to each of them, and you try to do those things that are important with them. You try to set aside time so that they feel that they're being appreciated and that they're feeling loved and seen and things like that. And if somebody says, oh, I don't feel like you're spending enough time with me, okay, we're going to spend some more time. I think it's really reasonable and important to sort of have a conversation with the gods that you work with about, like, here's what I can do. Does this feel right? Like, I feel like I can sit at your altar a couple minutes a day. I feel like maybe we do a ritual together every now and then. I don't know what your guidelines would be, but I think it's just like a human relationship. Like, how do I make time for everybody? And maybe not everybody is a priority. Like, I work with a lot of gods, but I really work with just a few of them regularly. A lot of them are like, hey, if I see you at a party, I'll wave at you. But they're not the people that I call in the middle of the night when I'm having a problem. And so just
they're acquaintance gods.
Yeah, I definitely have some of those. I have some that I've worked with for particular classes or witch camps or anything like that I worked with for that and really haven't gone back to. Yeah, I mean, I think that, so I say, like, so to balance all this, it's really about building a relationship and building a relationship enough to understand when you're not being reciprocal or you're not showing up enough. I don't think all the gods require tons of hours of time, to be clear. I don't think so. Aphrodite, maybe. But I think that
she has
a lot of feels. So, but that's the way I balance it. I just sort of check in with everything. Does this feel right? Because sometimes people will ask me like, oh, I'm not hearing anything from the gods. I was like, have you sat with them lately? Have you like cleaned up their altar? Where's your part in this? This is not, the gods are not gumball machines that we just put some stuff in and we hope everything comes out the way that we want it to. It's not the way that works. That's Christianity. And we're not doing that.
Well, and this is the thing, because I'm realizing, why did I even ask that question? Because, we are always learning stuff about ourselves.
Sure.
And you do from way back. Here's how the web people works. So this is Vicky just had a epiphany, but you do sort of have it in your head that you're supposed. I mean, not that I don't listen to anyone, but that you're supposed to listen and do what you're told. And so your answer just made me realize there was a little bit of that to work with on the periphery out there that I wasn't aware of, because we do have strong influences from our youth, and it doesn't ever hurt to so thank you for that answer. And I'll go clean that up right away.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot to be said for, if you're into sort of really teasing into this whole, like, how do I work with a whole bunch of gods at the same time? Look up folks that are poly. Look up polyamory. Like, look at all those different ways to like communicate and to navigate time, and how to not have one be jealous. That there is information out there that is just not. It doesn't say deity, so we tend to think like, well, that's not for that. I'm a human. Everything is in my human context. Why not follow what I know, or at least hopefully I know, and always learn from?
And that's the balance right there. Take the mythology, throw in some practical, real world experience, and there you go.
Create your spirituality. Absolutely.
Now, I wanted to touch on the fact, because it happens to many of us as we get older, or life experiences, that when we talk about activism, or how what we do connects the whole world, there are times when illness hits, you're homebound, the finances aren't so good. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of this now. I mean, not that they haven't always. Like the Vikings, I don't get to go to the cupboard and get a bowl of cereal, but you have 5 kids, you don't really have a lot of time outside of those 5 kids, but you still want to contribute, and because you feel that you can't possibly do the big stuff that we hear about, you feel like you're getting smaller, you're losing touch with that web, you are no longer of importance. What do we have to say with that kind of work for those people?
Well, I would say that, especially in the context of remembering that if we're all a part of the weird, we're all a part of contributing to things, no matter what we do, or no matter what we don't do. And so if I think of it like that, I think of the fact that even the smallest thing that I do is still a part of it. So when you say, can't do the things that people are supposed to do, which is, the activist Olympics are just too much. They are just not helpful. And I really think that is some sort of plant from the government to make everybody like be separate and sort of arguing as opposed to doing the thing. Because really, what is a perfect activist? What is the perfect thing to do? Have any of us solved the things that are going on? No.
And
so
every time you touch something,
thing.
This thread, you're hitting all the other ones, and maybe not in the best way. You don't know the outcome of what you're doing.
It's true. I think I would just say that the smallest movement is a movement still. And I think that, because a lot of folks can't just go out and do certain things, the internet is amazing most of the time. And there's so many things to connect with, and to, connect with groups that are already doing stuff. Because the truth of the matter is, if there's a cause out there, you're not the first person to think of it. There is somebody else that's been doing it for a while. Go find those people. Go find, tug on that weird and go over there and see what is there for you. Because you're already connected to it anyways, if we're thinking about a web. So how can I pull myself closer to that?
And the smallest things, smiling at someone, saying please and thank you, all the stuff that Captain Kangaroo and Barney mentioned.
Fair.
Just go back to it.
But it's just, yeah, I mean, I think that we can all do something. And I think that's one of the things that's, resonates for me about the Norns is that if we are in this big web and we can hold that to be a connection point, it also means that we're never doing anything alone. And that to me is something I say constantly, and that we're not alone and that we don't have to do it alone. So sometimes that can maybe allow you to drop your shoulders for a second and realize this one thing that I can do is still helpful.
Well, and the not being alone not only makes you feel better because you're not alone, you realize that other people are living the same experiences, and that gives you hope.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too is that I think that there's sometimes this idea that I have to do this big thing and see results right now. And that's really not the way a lot of things go. A lot of the things that we're doing right now or that folks have been doing for climate change are not going to show up for a bit. A lot of the work that I would do right now for climate change, while I want it to have an impact in this moment, is really for the next generation. And so it's hard to recognize your part in that.
But
because you're like, I'm not seeing it.
That's
but
the
it's part
actual
of it.
pivoting. I mean, isn't there that whole line or whatever is that someone who plants a tree is somebody who has hope?
Yes,
And
exactly.
you're never going to see that oak tree grow because they take forever and ever, but you're doing it for someone. So it is the most generous of things because you're not legitimately going to get anything out of it.
Well, and it goes back to the whole, we're all in this together, thinking back to folks, however many years ago, they all had to rely on each other. We're still doing that now. Like we are in this together, whether we see the results of our actions right now. And honestly, it's not even about that. It's the fact that we're continuing to act, because not only is the action doing something, but someone seeing you do it is another thing. And someone seeing you do it again, and then them seeing that, and then somebody else and somebody else. It's a web, and we are connected. And how do we continue to weave into our little string something that will move forward?
That will. And I mean, as much, I'm thinking, even if you just meet somebody and they are being highly opinionated, maybe just nodding your head for that moment will let them know that's possible and have a good day. You don't have to, because in the end, you're going to upset yourself in the long run. Yeah. Often. So there is that.
And to be clear, this is not about not speaking up for yourself and not speaking up for things that are important to you or anything like that. But there is a certain degree to which, what is the little thing that folks say, like when you're going to say something, is it kind? Is it true? Things like that. Am I contributing well? Yes. Am I contributing well to the weird right now?
Right.
That might be a way to look at it.
It is. It isn't. None of this is about not respecting people's feelings, not about caring, not about wanting things to be better. It's about, is anything really working that's happening now? Is this really working? And maybe taking another look at it and thinking how to maybe change things up a bit.
Absolutely.
To make it work. Now, back to all about Irisanya. No.
Yay. My favorite part.
So besides writing, what have you been up to lately? Like we talked about you being a teacher.
What else have I been doing? Yeah, so when we last met, it was back in March. I was actually that day leaving to teach at a witch camp in Australia. And so I've done that since then. It was a witch camp on Aphrodite. And it was it's not the first, but one of the first camps to be in person again. And so to actually be with a bunch of people and to make magic together on this beautiful land in Brisbane, outside of Brisbane, Australia. And so I did that, which was lovely. I was teaching on that team. Since then, I've also traveled to do some magic in the UK. And so I got to do that for a little bit. I also don't always teach. I actually just went to a witch camp at the end of June in California. And that was a lovely experience. It was Bridget, and it was also me seeing a bunch of people I haven't seen in a while. In terms of less personal and more writing and things like that, I've been teaching absolutely a lot of Aphrodite classes. Taught my first class on Iris. I've never done that. And that went really well. It was very sweet. So that's probably going to come back. I'm currently tonight, actually, I'm teaching co-teaching class 4 out of 6 on Elements of Magic, which is a reclaiming foundation class. And we're looking at it through the lens of Aphrodite. So how does Aphrodite work with foundational magic? How can we build relationships with gods? Things like I talk about. And so we're doing that. I'm in the midst of, I wrote a book on Circe. It's in the process that it's in. I don't know when it's coming out. Next year. I am contracted to write a couple more books, and I don't know if I can say what they are, so I guess I won't. But I am contracted to do a few more things.
That's annoying.
A little bit, right? I will say that it's very Greek themed. That's what I will say. Okay. It's very Greek themed.
And you can pre-order Artemis at this time?
So yeah, so the next books that are out. So Norns just came out within the last few days. And in November, Gaia actually is the next book to come out. And it's part of the Earth Spirit series. It's the same thing that my Honoring the Wild book is in. So the Earth Spirit series, all about environmental activism and the such. Gaia it's called Gaia, Saving Her, Saving Ourselves. And it's about how we can restore the connection to Gaia as a being and thus be pulled back into activism and to saving ourselves, because we are also Gaia. It's very activist leaning, lots of tips, tricks, all of that, talking about how to navigate ecological grief, how to build communities that can be sustainable. So that's coming out in November.
So it's less of a feelings on and more of a hands-on.
Yeah, there's definitely some personal stuff in there, but more I'm pulling forward the ways in which I've helped build community. And so that is sort of more the thread in that. And then in April, I think, is when Artemis comes out. And Artemis it's Artemis, goddess of the wild hunt and sovereign heart, I think. I don't have it in front of me. I have the book, but I just don't. You all don't yet. I do. I have it.
You know what? You should. This is what I was going to say. You should have them on the desk so that you can hold the pictures.
I'm an awful marketer. Yeah, I'm a good writer, just not good at the marketing bit.
Well, isn't that the unfair bit about living in these times? How do you have time to write and do the marketing? I can't figure it out. I mean,
here I am. I'm doing it.
You are doing
it. I'm here. So yeah, I mean, I think that those are the books that are coming out. Circe will, if it goes along the same pattern, it would probably come out next summer. And then I think I have said this online. My next book after this is another Pagan Portals, and it's Hestia, so the goddess of the hearth. And that one I really want to be about building community and how to build community ongoingly in these times. I feel like other people have said this thing that I'm going to just say whatever. So the other book that I'm going to be writing is on the Greek pantheon. So it's it's more informational, and it's more about that. My publisher,
Morgan has the Norse pantheon book, doesn't she? The pantheon books. Okay.
Yes, right. I have that book as my reference to look at. So yeah, I do. I do. I actually read that and did an endorsement for Morgan on that book. So yeah,
I didn't mean to bring up another writer on your show.
That's great. But, Morgan's great.
I have to spend.
Love Morgan Daimler.
I was just, and I'm quite enjoying her fictional work as well.
Right.
I started reading the series. I had read Into the Shadow, which I loved, but I hadn't read her Otherworld series. I started last night on the first one. And
amazing and very prolific.
And once again, I don't even know how any of you ladies get all this stuff done. Okay. I'm just and there they go with another book. And there it goes. I missed that one.
I know. It's really funny. It's it's a way of life, I guess, at this point. And I'm writing a couple of other pieces for things that are going to show up in anthologies. So that's really exciting.
Because you do poetry as well.
I
and
also,
you write
I've worked
some
at, Mhm.
lovely poems. You have some books out with your poetry.
I have one book of poetry. Yes. I have another one that I'm working on in the background because that one was about grief and this next one won't be. So I feel excited about that. I feel excited to not write so many grief things for the moment.
Yeah, for the moment, but they are important, and you do it.
Life
do
is
it well.
just. Thank you. Yes, I mean grief and love, right? Grief and love. They're just different sides of the same thing.
You have to have it all.
Mm-hmm.
It's all you can't. It's the ups and downs, and right.
I mean, it's one of the reasons why I work with Aphrodite is that, and why it's hard to work with Aphrodite, because everything you love, you're going to lose. Every single thing at some point. And so do you still love knowing that? I think so.
Well, that's where the hope comes in, right? Or for it to
always back to hope. Bring it back.
It's all about getting rid of fear, because that's going to hold you back from fear.
Well, I think it's about
of losing
it. Fear's going to be there no matter what.
Right,
so
right.
You might as well just make a little peace with it and say,
here you come, there you go. As your imagery in the Norns, to bring it back then, was leaves falling, rolling down the stream.
And I think that one thing I would say, because there is a line in this book that I do actually really like that might be a nice way to sort of wrap the Norns. First of all, I will say in the book, I do say that I have a favorite Norn, and I do. And so you can find out who that is if you haven't already heard me say it a zillion times on other things. So the book talks about basically the 3 Norns, but there's tons of Norns. And so that's in there too. But the 3 Norns are the main ones that are in all the pictures. So one of the lines I say in here is, if Erd is the opening of eyes, then Verdandi is a deep breath, and Skuld is the movement and momentum towards whatever comes next. So in one line, that's the thread through them, is that awareness, taking that breath before you do something, and then moving into whatever comes. And so if you can think of that, that's the weave of them.
And that breath is important, because
I think so.
Yeah, we don't always, we react so quickly without taking a minute to yes. So on so many different levels, the Norns works as research, as guidance, as it is just a great book. So go get it.
I encourage that. You can get that. You can get it at any of the online booksellers. I have some on my website. If you want, I have a bunch of them. If you want them signed and maybe blessed by my cats, that's something that I can offer.
And you can find the website if you're on looking at this on any of the platforms. It will be listed. It is going across the screen as we speak. It is underneath Irisanya's name, and it really is just, how Google works. You don't need the whole thing. Just put Irisanya.
There's only one Irisanya that I have found so far. Thank goodness. And another thing for folks to know, at least this is August of 2023. The whole month of August, my publisher is having half off of all ebooks.
Moonbooks.
Including this one. So you could go to the website. The publisher is now called Collective Inc., INK. And so you can go into the website. You'll probably see the thing. There's a code, and you can get an ebook for half off.
So in the case of the Norns, which first of all, the Pagan Portal books are priced to the fact that they are smaller books. They're not, they're not $20 for such a book. So you get that information. So I'm thinking that would make it like $2.99.
I have no idea what ebooks cost. So yes, that's sure. That sounds good. I honestly don't know.
I think so. Definitely less than the price of
because it's a UK publisher, so I don't always know how that translates. Yeah.
Hello, Tamara. Thank you for joining us.
Tamara. Yes.
So,
what's next for me? I mean,
Yes.
one thing I will say is that, so one of the things I usually do at this point is say, here's what I'm doing next. And I'm in that weird phase of the year where I don't have dates for things yet. So I don't want to say anything that is coming. But I will say is that my website's really great and it will have it on there. You can also sign up for a newsletter that I put out once a month, new moonish. But what I am doing next is that I am teaching at a witch camp in British Columbia, Canada. Towards the end of September. So I'll be out there. And then
so are you driving up the coast, or are you going to fly?
Okay. I'm going to fly. And then, so I'm going to teach there. The story of that camp is Bridget. So Bridget's everywhere this year. And so I'm going to be doing that. And then after that, I'm going to be in Greece helping folks with some magic-y stuff in and around Athens and Delphi and things like that. And then there's going to be some other things coming up that I can't say yet, but there are things coming where you can get either, if you're around where I'm at, great. Some probably things in person, but a lot of things are still online because I like connecting with folks all around the world. So.
And on any of her social media, like poems will pop up, and it's beautiful pictures of her travels and things like that. So, you might even say, "Oh, she's got a new book coming out. Maybe we should talk about it."
Yeah, like that sounds familiar. I usually, in my newsletter, I usually talk about things that I like ahead of time. So sometimes folks will get a little inside scoop of what I'm working on. And sometimes I'll put like a little piece of what I'm working on. I don't typically share things ahead of time, but not for books, I don't. But.
So, and that is it. That is our afternoon with Irisanya.
Thank you.
And we'll have to get back together again when you get a few of these things out, and we can discuss them further, because it's always nice to see where you're at and what you're doing.
What I can say, it's going to be under the banner of heart magic. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Okay, just stop. I'm already overwhelmed.
That's the tease.
She goes, okay, you take care. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much,
and
Vicky.
We'll talk again soon.
We will.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Right. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Always nice talking to Irisanya and catching up. And for the rest of you. Oh, okay. Tamara's just, and the rest, and definitely share this with other. Tamara says she's going to be watching this show later tonight because she missed some of the beginning. And so if you have friends that think that would be interested, let them know that they can do that as well. And for everyone out there, I will see you next week. Until then, may your coffee be hot and your story sweet. Thanks for listening, everyone.